Hi, welcome back. I'm trying different media for recording my lessons. Screencastify limited me to 5 minutes, and I needed to talk for more than 5 minutes today. So this is the topic for lesson 2 in the online immunity project. It's called "What is Making Me Sick?" So in lesson 1, you learned a little bit about what pathogens are and the body's first and second lines of defense. And today we want to talk about the little buggers that actually do make us sick once they get in. So a lot of times we call these pathogens microbes. That's just another name for microscopic organisms. And I don't want you to be afraid of microbes in general because they're everywhere. Your body contains about 10 times more bacterial cells than human cells. So you're already outnumbered. And a lot of these are in our intestines and in our digestive tract. And, without them, you wouldn't even be able to digest a lot of your food or produce the vitamins that you need to survive. So we have a lot of healthy symbiotic colonies of bacteria that live in and around us, and without them, we couldn't survive. So symbiosis, if you recall, is a relationship between two organisms, and in this case, it would be mutualism, which means both organisms benefit. Fun fact about bacteria, they can reproduce really, really quickly. Every 20 to 30 minutes, they can duplicate. And this makes them pretty highly adaptable. And with that quick of reproduction, a lot of genetic variations make it easy for them to adapt and survive. So there's 5 major categories of infectious agents. We'll talk about the first 2 today, viruses and bacteria. There are 3 others that are a little bit more obscure, but can still cause some pretty serious diseases: fungi, protozoa, and helminths. So let's see. This is a little snapshot of what viruses are. You could literally spend all day learning about viruses, especially with the pandemic of the COVID-19 virus going on right now. Here's an interesting fact. Viruses technically are not a living thing. They're really just a bundle of DNA and RNA with some protein and maybe a lipid outer layer to protect them. They can't reproduce on their own. They can only reproduce their genetic material in a host cell. So they often will take over the host cell and cause problems in that regard. It makes viruses really hard to study because scientists can't grow viruses in the labs. So if you wanted to do a culture of bacteria, you could grow a bunch of them in a petri dish. You can't do that with viruses. You actually have to grow them within a host cell. So sometimes they'll grow viruses in a lab within bacteria, but it's still really tricky to study. Lots and lots of viruses out there. The common cold is a virus. Measles, chickenpox, and influenza are viruses, all of which we have vaccines for. And just in case you didn't know, vaccines are for viruses. And then, of course, the coronavirus, which coronavirus is actually a family of viruses and includes the new COVID-19 virus. This is a picture of an electron micrograph of influenza. And then this is a COVID-19 virus, and they're named coronaviruses. The name corona means crown because they have this ring or structure around the outside. All right, bacteria are actually one of the 3 main types of living cells. They're definitely the smallest cells by far, but they're pretty big compared to a virus. They can be 10 to 100 times larger than a virus. And like I said, they reproduce really, really, really fast, every 20 to 30 minutes. And they do this by cloning in most cases, which is supposed to be an exact copy, but some mistakes do happen when copying DNA. Mutations result. And in some cases, these mutations are good for the bacteria because they can become resistant to medications. So good for the bacteria, bad for us. They can also trade genetic information with one another. This picture down here is an electron micrograph of 2 E. coli bacteria. And they're actually, if you look really, really closely, they're connected by this string-looking thing. It's actually a tube called a pilus, and they're actually trading genetic material between one another. Scientists think that bacteria might have been one of the first life forms on Earth, and I could probably, like I said, with viruses, have a whole lesson just on bacteria. They cause all kinds of things that make us sick. Strep throat is caused by a streptococcus bacteria. Lots of different urinary tract infections, staph infections in your skin. You can have blood infections, tons and tons and tons. And you may learn more about those in today's challenge. So how the heck do these things get in? How do you stop these pathogens from getting in? Like I said before, they're already there. Most of them don't make you sick, but the pathogens can enter the body in many ways. We certainly can have pathogens enter through indirect contact, so via the air, and our body does a really good job of trying to filter those things out through the mucous membranes in our nose and in our throat. We can also have pathogens through direct contact with contaminated water. There are quite a few protists that can live in contaminated water. You know, back in the old days, people would get really, really sick from drinking water that was contaminated. Skin to skin contact can trade pathogens. Food can be contaminated with bacteria. So how many of you have ever had food poisoning? So food poisoning actually is caused usually by bacteria, and it really can occur in a couple different ways. If you have food poisoning that hits you, let's say within half an hour of eating, most likely the bacteria had already replicated in the food and produced a toxin, and your body, if you are throwing up or having diarrhea right away, is trying to get rid of that toxin. If you have food poisoning that, let's say, hits you 6 hours or so after you eat, chances are you ingested some bacteria. The bacteria has had time to replicate and build up a huge colony, and your body says, everybody out. And you can have food poisoning that lasts for several hours, if not days, until your body gets rid of that bacteria. And then, of course, blood and body fluids can certainly transmit a lot of pathogens. And anyone in the healthcare field knows that's really important to protect yourself from bloodborne pathogens like hepatitis. There are also ways to transmit disease from humans, from other animals. They're called vectors. The information from the website that I used for this lesson said that disease transmitters are often called vectors. But the number one transmitter of disease to humans from a non-human source are mosquitoes. And you've probably heard of malaria, which is a disease caused by a pathogen that mosquitoes can carry. But other non-human sources, other animals, fleas, ticks, even a dog bite can transmit some pathogens. So here's a really good representation of how small pathogens are. So this big black blob on this side would be a period at the end of a sentence in your typical type in a printed, say, a page in a book. Okay, if you look really close, this little smudge next to the period is a bacteria called Pseudomonas. In this yellow shaded area is that same Pseudomonas bacteria magnified 75,000 times next to one influenza. So I told you bacteria were a lot bigger than a virus, and that's definitely true. So I could have went on and on and on and told you everything you know about different pathogens, but I am actually more interested in letting you find a pathogen that interests you and learning more about it. So this is your challenge. This is your assignment for my Meridian Junior High students. I want you to pick a pathogen, either the virus or a bacteria. And I'm not going to say you can't research COVID-19, but There are a lot of them out there. So pick just one, find out if it's a virus or a bacteria. And then I'm looking for, I don't know, 5 to 8 sentences. I want you to learn more about it. Tell me anything interesting you find about this pathogen. Tell me how it makes the human body sick. So try to figure out, how does it disrupt homeostasis? And each pathogen does something a little different. How does it upset the body? And then find out if there are any treatments out there for people who acquire a pathogen. Now remember, a pathogen is something that makes us sick. So you need to find, if you're searching bacteria, a bacteria that's not good for us. You don't want to research a bacteria that is already in our guts and doing great things. So something that makes us sick. And you can post what you find in the lesson 2 activity and echo. And then I believe we are going to do our second Zoom meeting on Thursday, March 26th. And you can do a class share out about the pathogen that you researched. So I'm looking forward to hearing about that and doing another Zoom meeting with you. So hopefully this video worked out and you could see all the slides. And if you have any questions, you can send me a message in Remind or send me an email. Thanks.